I want to deal with the sort of legal dimensions of prisons today, and are they truly lawful institutions, and do they uphold the human rights of prisoners, which clearly they don't. And today I want to talk to a friend of mine, an ex-prisoner called Andy Jenner, who spent a considerable length of time in prison but legally qualified as a lawyer and became a jailhouse lawyer and was particularly good at representing and defending black prisoners in particular. So this is Andy Jenner. Now, you legally qualified as a lawyer, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that was my original intention. I had no convictions as a juvenile, and I was fitted up because they were anxious to arrest the person I was working for part-time. And I suppose you all heard, how many times we heard that, but 18 months later the Court of Appeal found out the truth and they quashed the convictions. But my career as a barrister was obviously destroyed. And so I actually became a career criminal, and I was quickly accepted by senior members of the fraternity.
This was an armed robber community.
Yeah. And I just went on from there, and by the time the conviction was quashed, I'd already come to their attention again. So had I waited, I suppose things would have been different.
So your life could have gone down another path.
Yeah,
if you hadn't been fitted up.
All I wanted to do was read for the bar.
Right, so you qualified as a lawyer, yeah?
Yeah.
So did you witness many abuses of human rights in prison?
Oh, untold. Most of it where I concerned myself was racial abuse.
Oh, racial abuse, racism.
Yeah. Black prisoners were treated very, very poorly. You had a lot of national fronts in the prison service.
Prison officers?
Prison officers, yeah. And they couldn't display the badges, but they used to have them under their lapel. And they would make life particularly difficult for black prisoners. In one case, they killed one.
What jail was this in?
That was Wandsworth, Yusuf Ryan, who basically shouldn't have been there at all. But they put him down the block, and to shut him up, they tranquilized him, right? Because he was that big. Not tall, only about 5'6", but about 5'6" wide. They couldn't get a body belt on him. Right? So they tranquilized him, and they used enough tranquilizer to kill a horse. And when called to account for it, it was a mistake. Now, how the hell is that a mistake? Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't bear thinking about.
No, it was murder, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's murder, yeah.
And what would be your opinion of individuals who come in and monitor the treatment of prisoners and supposedly were there to keep the management of the prison and the staff accountable?
Yeah.
They themselves witnessed abuse of prisoners, didn't they?
Yeah, but loosely they were there to safeguard the interests of all.
Right.
But basically they rubber stamp anything the governor said.
Right, so they just were just another instrument
it's
of the system. Your anger must have been deepened by that, but did you still believe as a lawyer that it was possible to persuade prison regimes and those managing them to behave in a legal, lawful way? Because
the POA, they run a tight ship, I think.
The Prison Officers Association.
Yeah. And they cover for each other.
Mm. So it's totally corrupt.
Well, it's lawless, isn't it? Literally, an institution that is meant to be there as an instrument of law does nothing but break it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We were in Long Lartin together, do you remember?
Yes.
During the late 80s and early 90s. Mm-hmm. And we managed to organise a forum there, do you remember, on prisoners' rights?
Yes, I was the chairman.
You chaired it, that's right, yeah.
At 9 o'clock in the chapel, prisoners, prison staff, police, pressure groups and ex-convicts gathered. Many inmates came with prepared speeches and questions. The day-long forum had one absentee, John Bowden himself, who had been transferred out of Long Lartin 4 weeks earlier as a punishment.
Unfortunately, I was ghosted or moved before the forum took place. I unfortunately wasn't there. But that was quite a unique event, wasn't it?
I think it did achieve quite a lot. People's views were heard and broadcast on Channel 4. And hopefully it would have changed a lot of people's minds as to the effectiveness of imprisonment. I can remember Stanley Thompson.
He's a prisoner, yeah.
The prisoner, yeah, speaking. Because I was given the right to choose who could speak, and obviously I couldn't, just didn't have the time for everyone, but I asked Stan, I said, what would you like to say? And he said, well, the regime at Long Lartin, it has been proved to work.
There's a relationship between the staff and prisoners in this prison that is unique in the prison system. I'm talking about the dispersal system, right? And subsequently, since this prison has been going, there's been no crisis of control in this prison. In other words, there's been no tear-ups, no bad assaults on screws, etc., etc. Now, the Home Office knows that works. It knows Albany doesn't work. It knows Wakefield doesn't work. It knows Franklin doesn't work. All them, but it knows this works. Why does it perpetuate those systems when it knows this works? Why doesn't it change those systems to the same as this?
There's very, very little trouble at Long Lartin.
Why was that?
Because the regime was designed to accommodate the needs of prisoners, unlike Albany, where it was the exact opposite, in my experience.
And there was quite a lot of solidarity. I mean, we had a Prisoners' Representative Council there that would meet with the governor once a week. So there was that balance of power, and I think that was illustrated by that forum or debate that we organised and that you chaired. But unfortunately, during the later 90s, the solidarity caved in, didn't it? And then Long Lartin became one of the most repressive maximum security prisons in the UK.
Yes, I found, when I finished that sentence, since then I got another 4 years over a fraud. That was in 2012. And when I went back, it was totally different. Absolutely, there was no comparison.
Do you think the culture, the staff culture of prison officers has changed over, say, the last, 20 years?
Yes, I would think now they put themselves above legal obligation. You know, so that's been proved many, many times.
So they are allowed to behave unlawfully?
Yeah, without a doubt, Because they can cover anything up. You know, apart from a death, and even then.
Well, Barry Prosser.
Kicked to death, and that was motoring offence, wasn't it? Or something?
No, he had serious mental health problems, and he was causing a disturbance, a very minor disturbance. And then one evening, 3 or 4 prison officers beat him to death. And the doctor, inevitably, said that they were self-inflicted injuries, you know. But his partner insisted that the police investigate it, but the police said when they entered the prison to do the investigation, they met a total wall of silence from every degree or level of prison staff there. 3 prison officers were prosecuted for the murder of Barry Prosser, but was acquitted.
Well, they always are.
They always are.
The thing that really surprises me there is that doctors would be complicit. I mean, I could expect the prison governors to be like that. They don't want to upset the POA and have a rebellion against them. The Board of Visitors is a paper tiger. But it does surprise me that medical professionals can subscribe to that sort of thing.
How did you feel going into an environment where the staff had total and absolute power and were abusing that power? Did you not feel vulnerable and frightened?
I didn't really give a damn whether they hit me or not, because I wasn't going to lay down unless unconscious. And you were the same. You know, but unfortunately, a lot of people do capitulate. And I can't say that I blame them when they're threatened to that level and abused in that to that degree.
There are lots of prisoners like us who were held under Rule 43B, kept in segregation in the interests of good order and discipline.
Yeah,
You could be held indefinitely. I spent 4 years in solitary confinement. You could be held indefinitely.
To be honest with you, I didn't mind block time.
This was segregation.
Yeah,
Right.
I didn't mind it. As long as I've got my books and the radio.
So you were held in virtual solitary confinement. You could be held indefinitely in solitary confinement, even if you hadn't committed any offence, which is totally unlawful treatment.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember at least 2 going completely loopy in the block at Albany.
All right.
You know, crying out during the night and things.
Really?
You know, I mean, maybe they had mental difficulties anyway, and if they did have, that should have been recognised, and that isn't the way to deal with it.
No. Because some prisoners, I think including yourself and myself as well, have taken legal actions against the prison system because of abuse of human rights. I mean, my civil action succeeded. But unless prisoners themselves legally challenge their treatment and the behaviour of those imprisoning them, then there's no legal dimension or atmosphere at all in prisons in terms of staff behaviour.
I mean, I remember our friend Jimmy Anderson. He was involved in the Scrubs riot, and when he was restrained, thrown into I don't know whether it was the strong box or just the seg. But anyway, he somehow got the message out that how badly injured he was, and they wouldn't allow anyone, an independent medical examiner, to come in for about 2 weeks. And in the end, they had to, and that doctor said that Jimmy's injuries were consistent with having been in a car crash.
God.
Do you know what I mean? Now, that's not restraint, is it?
No, he subsequently committed suicide.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's a great shame.
So for a prisoner like yourself, who had sort of legal expertise and knowledge and training, living in that environment must have been quite unsettling, was it?
The one thing they can't stand, in my case, I shouldn't be blowing my own trumpet, and yours, they do not like an intelligent prisoner. They want everyone who can barely write their own name, and education in prisons is abysmal. They go on and on and on about education is vital. They do everything they can to suppress it.
And how long have you been out of prison now?
10 years.
You've been out?
Since the last
heavy
4,
sentence.
yeah.
And how have you coped with living outside of prison?
I mean, I've been fortunate because of the qualifications that I have, that I've been able to do various things that aren't open to most other people.
Right.
I am aware of the prejudice that exists in this country.
Regarding whom?
Well, it seems to me that this country always has to have someone to pick on. I mean, I remember as a child, it was the Irish. The Irish people were replaced by black people. Then it became Asians. Now it's Eastern Europeans. It seems that there's always someone to hate.
Scapegoats.
Yeah, and a lot of these people do wind up in prison for the most trivial things.
Andy, it's been a pleasure to interview you. Thanks very much for engaging in the conversation. Take care.
Lovely to be with you again.